Are you looking to master the Cloud Architect technical interview or the Cloud Security Architect interview? If so, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Michael Gibbs and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects, and we're an organization dedicated towards building high-performance cloud computing careers. Today we're going to talk about some Cloud Architect technical interview questions to help you prepare for the Cloud Architect technical interview. Now, when we do Cloud Architect technical interviews, what we do is we ask open-ended questions. And we ask open-ended questions because we want to see what your answers are going to be. We're not looking for one-word answers. We're looking to see if you're technically competent, and we're also looking to see if you can communicate well. See, as a Cloud Architect, it's going to be a customer-facing position. And because it's a customer-facing position, you're going to have to explain your solutions and complicated technologies to the customer, but you're also going to have to be able to listen to them and learn about whatever their complex application environments are, their complex network environment, their complex computing and storage environments, and be able to take those and design something. So on this Cloud Architect technical interview, we were going to assess your competency and your communication skills. So let's talk about some Cloud Architect security questions today. And we're going to talk about several of them. Security is absolutely critical to any computing environment. The first question we're going to ask is, what is a man-in-the-middle attack? A man-in-the-middle attack is simply if you've got two users, user A, user B, and user A is communicating to user B, and user A is user A, and user B is user B, and communication is occurring. That's perfect. But in the man-in-the-middle attack is you have user A and you have user B. But there's this sneaky guy C that comes up between A and B, and C pretends to be B by impersonation. So user A talks to user B, user C, when they're really trying to talk to user B. And what happens if user A speaks to the pretend user B, but it's actually user C, and divulges secret or confidential information? That is what a man-in-the-middle attack. A man-in-the-middle attack is when you've got two people or two computers or two network systems or two anything on the environment, and something sneaks in between the communication, pretends to be another endpoint, and communication secrets are divulged. Big problem. So the next question would be, how do you prevent a man-in-the-middle attack? Well, the only way to really prevent a man-in-the-middle attack is to do some form of endpoint verification. And the best way to do endpoint verification is by using some form of encryption. So for example, IPsec does user endpoint verification. If you force an HTTPS session, that's also going to force endpoint verification, so you know who the sender is and who the receiver is going to be. If you're using wireless, you can use WEP or WPA encryption, or you can use public key pair based authentication. But really the key is you're going to have to just verify your endpoints. That's how you prevent a man-in-the-middle attack. The next question is really, what is data protection when they talk about encryption in transit versus encryption at rest? Really, they talk about protecting your data. And this one's not that complicated, but we find people get this confused all the time. Data protection at rest is when basically you encrypt a volume or you encrypt a hard drive and all the data stored on the hard drive is encrypted. Or you have a bucket and you encrypt your data, so when it's sitting there, it's encrypted. So if someone were to pick up that server or that storage array where it's at and they wanted to get access to your information, they can't because they don't have the decryption key. By comparison, encryption in transit is when you send a message from user A to user B, you encrypt the message while it's be there. So this is, again, talking about encryption technologies such as VPNs, which typically are IPsec, HTTPS, or those types of things. So that's the difference between data encryption and data protection. Data encryption at rest versus in transit. At rest, it's sitting there on an encrypted drive, and in transit, it's being encrypted along the network or along by the host or the receiver via something like HTTPS. The next question we're going to ask is, what's the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption? And this is really for us to ascertain whether the user really knows anything about encryption and how it works. So to make something complicated fairly simple, symmetric encryption is when you use the same encryption key to send and receive your traffic, going back and forth. That's symmetric encryption. It's very fast, it's been around for a long period of time, and it works well. But what if you wanted further security? What if you wanted to use this one encryption key for sending your data and another encryption key for receiving your data? Well, that would be even more secure. And that's what's called asymmetric encryption. And that's basically using a different encryption key to send versus a different encryption key to receive. That's asymmetric encryption. Now, if someone is really good, they can tell you the difference, but they can also tell you the challenges associated with asymmetric encryption. And here's the thing. How do you get both keys across in a secure environment? So it's often common that you would actually set up symmetric encryption just to exchange your keys, and then after that, move to what you really wanted to use, which was asymmetric encryption, or you can send your encryption keys via out-of-band via some other communication method. So when we hear these things and we know somebody knows the difference between symmetric and asymmetric encryption, we've got a good understanding that they actually understand encryption. The next question I like to ask people is, what is Nmap? And why do I like to ask this question? I like to ask this question because if anybody's done any kind of security in their life at some point, they've used Nmap. And Nmap is really just a network mapper, and it's a free open source tool that really will scan your hosts for you. So you can find hosts that are available, you can find open ports on your systems, you can find security risks, and it can help you hack into a system. So it's used by white hat or ethical hackers to find things that are open, to basically try and use them to penetrate the systems and then tell the organization what to use. And it's also used by black hat hackers, people that want to do ill will to the organization. They use Nmap to basically scan things and vulnerabilities, and then they attack based upon the vulnerabilities they find. The next thing I'm going to ask, and I know we've talked about this question before, but today we're focused on the Cloud Architect Technical Interview or the Cloud Security Architect Interview, so we're going to talk about some of your security things. What is IAM? And realistically, what we're looking for is not identity and access management, because that really tells me nothing. We just want to know that the user knows what is IAM. And if they say that basically IAM is identification of the users that access your system, authorizing them to do things that are related to their roles and only their roles, and then logging what they did when they're done so you can track what they've done, then I know they understand IAM. I often hear the concept of AAA. See, when I started out, we used to say authentication, authorization, accounting, and that was really simple. We all knew what it meant, whereas IAM is a little complicated. But authentication, making sure the user is the user, authorization, determining what the user is allowed to do on their system and letting them do it, and accounting, tracking what they did. That's what IAM is. When we hear something like that, we know that people are familiar with IAM. Another question we like to ask is, what is social engineering? And we like to ask this because we want to see if someone truly has a grasp of it, but can they communicate it as well? And social engineering, quite simply, is the use of deception to elicit information from people that they wouldn't normally give you. That's really it. So in other words, you're asking someone, you're pretending to be something, maybe to get someone's password, maybe to get some other critical pieces of information, and then you're going to use that information you've gained through social engineering to exploit or attack into the systems. The next question I like to ask, and this is probably one you've heard if you've been following our AWS interview questions or some of our cloud security work that we do, is how would you secure an enterprise? The reason we ask this question is we can find the AWS certified only folks without a background because they basically say things network, ACL, security group, and WAF. And if we hear something like that, we know that a person's got some AWS certification knowledge, but it tells us that they don't really understand security. See, for security, it is going to be a multi-layered approach. First and foremost, it's going to start with a policy. And the policy will describe what assets are worth protecting, the types of protections that are going to be used, the how and the why and the rationale. It's an overarching document. And then you're going to look at it from a few things. You're going to look at it from a user perspective, an encryption perspective, an IAM perspective, but you're going to look at it next from a tech perspective. See, the way you secure an organization is first you build an impenetrable fort, or at least you try to, and at the edge of your network you stick a firewall. And a firewall basically lets your good traffic out and return, but it keeps all your bad guys out. The firewall is the edge of your network. It's your perimeter protection. It keeps people out. But what if the hacker gets in? And at some point they will. You need something sitting right behind the firewall to stop anybody that gets in. And that's your IDS, IPS systems, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems. These systems literally monitor for patterns of behavior that don't look right, and they stop them. Maybe they add a new firewall rule, maybe they reset a TCP connection, but they stop them. They're adaptive and they stop them. So first a firewall, and then after the firewall, you need an IDS, IPS system. Now, realistically speaking, if you've got any web-facing things, you're going to need some DDoS protection. So that's when you start thinking about things like Cloudflare or AWS Shield, some type of DNS protection, because you obviously don't want to be hacked and you don't want denial of service attacks. So after that, now you got to start thinking about protecting the subnets in your network. And you can do that with ACLs on routers. You can do them with network ACLs in a cloud computing environment. And then you got to start thinking about protecting your hosts. So what do? With AWS, for example, you'd use a security group which protects the traffic into the host, but that's really not enough. On your host, you still want to do some endpoint protection, maybe an additional host-based firewall, maybe some malware protection. This is going to give you some good protection from the edge of your network all the way to your systems. But you're still going to have to make sure your data that's stored is encrypted. You're still going to have to secure the integrity of your physical systems. For example, if you've got a router that connects to your cloud in the middle of the room and anybody can plug into it, anybody can access your cloud and violate pretty much all of your security. You're going to have to think about identity and access management. You're going to have to think about training your users to avoid things like phishing attacks and social engineering. That's what goes into securing an enterprise. I'd like to thank you so much for watching this video, and I'd like to talk to you about some things we're doing for the Cloud Architect community. Every Monday and every Thursday, we have a free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. And on these webinars, we tell you what hiring managers desire. We tell you what your resume should look like. We tell you how to become technically competent. We tell you what skills the hiring managers want so you can focus on them, and what skills the hiring managers don't care about so you can focus your time on the things they actually do care about. We will tell you how to bypass HR so you can get your resume directly in the hands of the hiring manager, and so much more. We do this free on every Monday and every Thursday, and if you've got any Cloud Architect career questions, you can ask us that, and on these calls we will answer your questions live in real time. On Tuesdays, we have a Cloud Architect Experience webinar, and this webinar is purely focused on how you can get the necessary experience to get your first Cloud Architect job. See, when you're trying to build your Cloud Architect career or how to get your first Cloud Architect job, you typically run into this problem. Employers want experience, but how are you going to get experience if you don't have a job? So on this webinar, we will tell you and teach you exactly how to get the type of experience from your home that hiring managers desire to help you get hired. And we do that every Tuesday. Now, a lot of times on these, we give you a bonus. And we don't just tell you what to do. We run a Cloud Architecture Challenge. And we provide live Cloud Architecture training free on these calls. And what do we do with our Cloud Architecture training? You will interview a mock CIO. And they will give you the business, legal, and technical requirements for their enterprise. And then you will be tasked with whether you should migrate their enterprise to the cloud, and if so, you will design an architecture for the cloud. But you won't just design it for one cloud, you'll do it on at least two clouds on every Cloud Architect Experience webinar that we have, where we give you a Cloud Architect Challenge. Because Cloud Architecture training involves understanding what goes in the cloud, what doesn't go in the cloud, how to use the cloud, how the cloud works, how to design things on the cloud, and how to work in multi-vendor or hybrid cloud environments, because that's what's going on. The next thing I'd like to tell you is that on every Wednesday, we have a YouTube Live, and on the YouTube Live, you can ask us any questions to build your Cloud Architect career or your tech career. Bring us your questions related to your Cloud Architect career development or your Cloud Architect career development plan or program, and we will work very hard to answer your questions and help guide you so you can build the best cloud computing career in as short a period of time as possible. We are launching in the next week or two a new collaboration platform for the cloud computing community. And what's going to occur is we've built a Slack channel. My team's been working on it for about a month. And they've been integrating all of the best tools to allow for communication, collaboration, calls on demand, live Zoom meetings on demand. So literally people that are studying cloud computing from all over the world will be able to talk to each other, communicate, and get help. We will provide free advice on this channel. We will be showing you videos that we produce or training things that we do. We will give you the most up-to-date, best training that we possibly can on our public channel, and on our private channel. Obviously, we do our communications with our students because we communicate with our students very frequently. You can't just buy a career, never interact with the instructors and expect to get something. You buy a training program, you need to be asked questions, so we have this environment for our people as well. The last thing I wanted to tell you is related to AWS certifications. Now, as an organization, we are not focused on AWS certifications. We help people either get their first cloud architect job, or we help people escalate their career and accelerate their career to go from technical to management, or from cloud architect to senior cloud architect to principal cloud architect. That's our focus. but we understand that certification training is important. And because of that, we've created our own, because we couldn't find anything else that we liked, AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate e-course and ebooks. And the link to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate e-course and ebooks are below. They are completely free. Because of a lot of requests, we are hosting a free AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional Boot Camp, and we're going to host it on YouTube Live so we can do it for free. What we're going to do is we're going to be presenting the material for 20 minutes and then stopping for 10 minutes for everyone to ask questions. And that way we can give you a live boot camp experience to help you pass the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional Training. And because we're doing it on YouTube Live, it will be completely free, and we're pretty excited about that. So those are the things that we're doing to help you in your cloud computing career. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. It's an honor and a privilege to be part of the Cloud Architect community. I take it very seriously, and we try to produce the best content. If you've got any suggestions of things that we could do better or help you more, please send an email to AskCloudMike. Again, the link is in the description below, and we'll do everything we can to assist you in your cloud computing careers. Thank you so much for watching this video. We look forward to seeing you soon.